Hello, welcome to, I think, part 4 of the 750IL V12 rescue. So yesterday I ran out to a pick and pull in the afternoon. I found a junkyard that had an INI-32. It was a 735. Actually, they had two of them, a 735 and a 740. 735 actually had the correct white-backed instrument cluster, which seems to be a little bit less common. I found a lot of grays and a lot of blues. So this is the first time I found a white one, and a little difficult to get it out in a junkyard where you can't turn or easily remove the steering wheel, but I got it out. Uh, Threw it in here with this car's coating plug and everything worked. So last night I took both of them apart, put the correct V12 speedo and tack in, cleaned it up, and I'm putting it in the car now, and we'll make sure it all works again. And then I think we might start working on pulling the injectors out because the car still has a cold start misfire. Maybe even worse than it used to, but it has been sitting quite a bit. Um, so get the injectors out and get those rebuilt. And I maybe while I'm not sure if I'm going to really dive in and pull the intakes and everything off yet and do valve cover gaskets. I probably should do it all at once, but um, we'll see. So let's get the cluster in, fire the car up, and make sure that works. All right, so T27 Torx for the airbag bolts, two on the backs on each side here. There's a 22 millimeter nut that holds the steering wheel, and you have to turn the key to unlock the column to pull the wheel off. That makes it very difficult in the junkyard when you're trying to pull a cluster out, I'll tell you that. So it's in. It's going to probably come out one more time. I have a friend who thinks he's got a metric 750 cluster, and I kind of like metric gauges. So if so, I'll be pulling it out to at least swap some of the clocks over. But look at that, everything lights up. EML light works, and the battery's dead. Okay, but at least that part is good. Yeah, a bunch of warnings from things that are not connected. So that is great. Interestingly, so 146,000 miles showing on the cluster, 146,035. Carfax shows a mileage inconsistency. A few years ago, one of the many times this thing failed smog, it went in one time with 145, then it went in another time with 148, and then it came back after that with 146 something. And I think it was someone made a mistake because the coating plug on the back of the old cluster was the correct coating plug. It matches the VIN. I kind of thought maybe someone just swapped a cluster at some point because of the way the cluster in this car was acting. They do tend to fail. So I think this is probably accurate mileage, even though the Carfax shows a couple thousand mile discrepancy. So maybe since it's not starting, we should just pull the injectors out, see what time it is, and see how much time I've got. Interestingly, also, the airbag light went off as soon as I plugged in the airbag. I figured there'd be like a hard fault that I'd have to reset, and I forgot to bring my reset tool. So, but that's not the case, so that's great. So let's get out and go back to the front. Okay, now it should just be a simple matter of popping the clips off and popping out the injectors. Another nice thing with the 7 Series I found in the junkyard had a full toolkit, which is crazy. You never find a toolkit in a pick and pull complete. Felt like a good omen, you know. Still, that noise is the washing machine. I get the towel since this rail still has gas in it. Okay, it's really pretty amazing how much fuel is in the rail. You can see this is still dripping. Let's try not to lose any more clips. That one flung over somewhere, I think, under the 745. Luckily, these are pretty universal amongst at least all BMWs, if not other cars that use these injectors. So I'm sure I've got some floating around from past jobs or parts cars. I already took the other side out just to make sure it did come out without too much turmoil. There we go. All right. Let's get something to put those in. Got a bag for the injectors. Let's find a small bag for those clips. And stick these back over by the car. Find that one missing clip. All right, well, found the clip. Got a little bag for the other, with the other 11, so I got all 12 injector retainer clips here. Yeah, now that I just put some of this stuff back so I can close the hood and throw a couple of towels on top of the injector holes, just to keep, I don't know, who knows what from falling in. But as I look down there, I see at least a couple of coolant temp sensors, which I'm sure are original. Wouldn't be a bad idea to replace those. The ports for the fuel injectors are pretty dirty, so I'm gonna have to clean those out, of course. One question I'm gonna have to look up. So there's two connectors for each bank that go into the wiring harness here. One, I think, is the crank sensor, and one, I think, is the little donut sensor that goes around the number 6 and number 12 spark plug for cylinder identification. And on one bank, they were flipped. On that bank, that spark plug wire bank, the spark plug sensor was going in the top, the crank sensor was going in the bottom. On this side, it was the other way around. And the connectors are different colors. Gray is the crank, black is the spark plug. So kind of wondering, and now I can't see where the spark plug sensor went for this side. It dropped down in here. Of course, I don't have my light right now. So that's interesting. I'm gonna have to see if it matters. It seems like it should. And then we'll make sure they go in the right place, because yeah, I can imagine that might make a difference in how the engine runs. And it does smell rich, although it's got the aftermarket cats that you saw in the other oil change video that are probably shot. But if the coolant temp sensors are just not reading and they're reading cold, it's going to run rich. So some research to do. We have time while the injectors are out getting serviced, and then I'll decide how far I'm going to go at this stage. It'd be nice just to know the car runs right, because it hasn't really run 100% yet. Maybe coolant temp sensors, injectors, make sure the things are plugged into the right places, because they can plug in. It looks like they're basically the same connector, so they can plug in either way. Well, actually, they do look a little different, huh? Well, no, these look the same. So we'll see. We'll check back, keep going on this video once I get the parts back, and we'll kind of make this a same project. All right, so a few weeks have passed, probably several weeks. We last left off with me pulling injectors out, kind of dropped the ball and did not record putting the injectors back in, and a bunch of stuff in the meantime. But the injectors went back in. The report from the injectors was pretty interesting. They're supposed to flow about 150 cc's. 2 of them were about 50. 4 of them, the report said were dripping, and I think 2 or 3 were in the 50 to 100 cc range, and then a couple were okay. So, needless to say, it runs a lot better. Um, After putting the injectors in, I also replaced a bunch of the vacuum hoses and the fuel lines that were up on the top of the engine. I still need to do the fuel feeds and then get to the fuel tank to pump, replace the filters, and do all that. So that's going to be coming up next. But new injectors, car ran really pretty well, and it didn't smell horrible anymore. Lean paperwork came in, so I thought, let's see what happens. I have a kind of an independent. I tried to go to AAA, and they said, "Oh, we can't do lean paperwork." So I have an independent DMV person that I've used in the past. Brought everything out to them. They said, "No problem. Do you have your smog?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, we need to have the smog, and then we could actually just register it and get you new plates, because apparently the plates that were on the car can't stay with the car when it's gone through a lean title change, I guess. Doesn't matter, they weren't the original plates anyway. So I kind of like, original plates on an older car, but these started with the 7, which in California is like, I don't know, 6, 8 years ago, so maybe 10. So they were not correct for the car anyway. So I thought, okay, well, let's see, that was last Thursday that I did the DMV person, and she had said they go to the DMV physically. They bring all the paperwork in Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that was Thursday. I'd already missed that run. So she said, if you can get it smogged over the weekend, get me a smog certificate, I could get it registered for you. I had originally thought maybe I'll just do a title change, get a title so I know the car is going to be registerable and is in my name, and then start doing a bunch of other stuff to it. But so that shifted gears a little bit. So I thought, well, let's see if it'll pass smog. It had some aftermarket cats that didn't look very encouraging, and the car still didn't smell great, but it didn't smell as bad as it did. So went to my smog guy. Guy got there and his machine was having trouble calibrating. I was the first guy there the morning, and so the car sat idling for about 15, 20 minutes, which probably didn't help. Went on the dyno. He came out and shook his head. He's like, "Man, my eyes are watering. I don't think this is going to pass." And it failed. It didn't fail spectacularly. It was off by about 70 parts per million on hydrocarbons and about 200 on NOx on the lower speed, and it was a little bit less on the 25 mile an hour, because this has to run on the dyno at 15 and 20 miles an hour. So Julian, who I got the car from, has another parts car, and it had the factory cats, and he had said that car passed smog last fall. He's since parted that car out, but he had the cats, so I grabbed the cats from him, bolted them in, and with a set of factory cats, car was super clean, passed smog on Saturday, sent everything to my DMV person. So if all goes well, this is Monday. Tomorrow, when she goes into DMV, she'll have plates for me, and this car will be legal on the road. The downside is it drives terrible. Front end is garbage. The shocks, worst shocks I've ever had in a car. And if you get it bouncing, imagine on the freeway, it's not reassuring. It's a scary car to drive. Thrust arm bushings are shot, so the car shakes like crazy. We did before I took the car from Moraga, they had a new center link just in their inventory, so we put a center link in because the center link was terrible. And I had kind of a rudimentary alignment done just to get it in the ballpark. I'm running on 10-year-old tires, which probably aren't helping, but they don't look terrible. But at any rate, smog is done. We're waiting on registration papers. I cleaned it up a little bit. We'll do a walk around and show you the paint is shot, so that's going to be on the agenda. I removed a bunch of really terrible looking window tint. But thrust arms are on their way, pitman arms for the rear, sway bar end links, shocks. Oh, and came across something, because when a car is starting off as a basket case, what do you need but a set of Dynon springs? So Dynon E32 springs, which will go in when I do the shocks, because why not? And so that's going to hopefully happen this coming weekend, and I will do better about recording some of that. So those parts are on order. Julian still has the parts car, which I'm hopefully going to grab a few things off of. And maybe by the weekend or the end of the weekend, this car will be fairly roadworthy. Blower doesn't work, so I've got no climate control, and it kind of defaults at, if you have it in anything but the fully off position, you're getting heat blowing at you through the vents at your face. So there's something going on with the climate control. I've got a couple of extra of the IKHR or whatever this system is, the computer that goes up behind the dash. They were out of my E34. My Silver M5 has the same sort of climate control. One of them I know had a power drain because it was keeping the heater valves energized, so it would kill the battery overnight. And one of them, I was getting heat full time on the driver's side, but not the passenger side. But I might just see, this is a 90, that's a 93. They might be a little different because I know the wiring had changed at one point. Might take a look and see. And I'll also see if Julian's parts car has that, because he probably won't need that. So, few things to happen, and this car might be drivable in the not too distant future. Let's take a little walk around and I'll show you what it's looking like. All right, so yeah, the paint is terrible. I'm kind of toying with the idea of seeing, I'm going to do the prep myself, and maybe I could borrow a spray booth or something. I've got a couple of friends in the paint industry, and maybe I can try painting it myself. And I was also thinking, while I'm doing it, everything is bad. Maybe taking a little liberty and doing something slightly different, like diamond shorts, kind of a darker metallic gray, just because it's not something you typically would see on a US spec 750. Interior cleaned up well. The wood is a little faded. It would be nice to replace that at some point. I rebuilt, took a couple of clusters, found one in the junkyard, one light that comes on occasionally. The tack was lighting up last time, but so I got a loose bulb. But I found a 735 at Pick and Pull, and I pulled the cluster. It was a white back cluster, and I put it together with my gauges out of this car and the coating plug. So I've got a working cluster now. Seats are really nice. The leather is really in good shape. Had an old winter mat from my M5 that I threw in. Rear is similar. Wood's a little faded, but leather is really nice. Got the sunshade. Oh, it's starting to rain. I don't know if you hear that. But the sides have been painted, at least the back corner. The car was probably hit at some point, even though it's got a clean Carfax. You could see some filler or something coming through here. But this has been painted with clear, and then someone cleared up along here, which is failing, and then down there to blended. Much of the car is still single stage and probably original, which you can see on the trunk here. It's got its moving permit, so I can actually drive it a little bit, but it drives so bad I really don't want to drive it too much right now. Still got the gold 750 badge. Same thing over here. Clear coat failure. Got to strip that. The chrome style 3 is kind of grown on me, but there's like 1 or 2 tires available in the right size, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But interior's good. This door doesn't shut very well. So it's coming along. It's made some progress here in the time I've had it, for sure. I'll be a little better at updates in the future. Had a lot of other things going on that have preoccupied my mind, and so when I've been working on the car, I've just been kind of working on the car from a therapeutic standpoint rather than anything else. Just not thinking, just working on it, which is enjoyable for me. So I will check back sooner than later. Hopefully we'll have something out next week when I do some suspension work. I'm thinking probably just swap spots with the M5, put it up on the lift so I can get under it and take some parts off. And if I need to leave it, I can. And then also all the fuel rubber that's under the car. I'm going to keep the self-leveling. The rear shocks seem to be fine. It's got some used but not very old accumulators that the guys at Auto House gave me before I took the car, because the old ones, of course, it was rock hard and the car was sitting a little bit low. I need to get one center cap if I want to keep the style 3s. But yeah, it's making some progress. Feels like it's got good power. It accelerates pretty well. And yeah, it's nowhere as nice as the one I had, 12, 15 years ago. I can't remember when that was, maybe 12 or 13 years ago. But it'll get there. So we'll check back hopefully in a couple of weeks here. Thanks for watching.